Hello, welcome, welcome. Hello, Marlene. How are you today? Let's see if I can get my light to work. It would be nice if I had more light. Let's see. I don't know. Can we have more light? Hi, Tracy. Hi, Sheila. How are you doing? See if I can get this light to work. It'll be brighter. Let me see. See if I can get my light to work better. Get my light to work. Won't be so dark. I have to order another thing. Okay. We are here. We are here. Okay. We're going to talk about why strong women stay alone. And I'm going to talk about my reasons. The reasons I told myself that I was alone for 46 years. So, you doing good? You'll be 75 on the 22nd? Great. July 22nd? Happy birthday coming up. You still a baby. I'm 77, so you still a baby. So yeah, you still a baby. Put some lipstick on. I have like on kind of a dark dress, but anyway, put a little lipstick on. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. 77. Yep. 77 on March. Hi, Rose. How are you doing? Anita, our moderator, is here. So welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about why strong women stay alone and what we tell ourselves. So I'm just going to start off talking about what I told myself. So I was married for 10 years, and I have to say, I think it was like my high school sweetheart. And I think one of the reasons that here's what I tell stuff I don't think I want to tell. That's what happens. I start talking and I'm like, don't tell them that, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You know, I don't keep anything from you. So my husband and I, when we got married, we're young, and we became very religious. And so our marriage was mostly about kind of being very religious. So I think that was a good foundation for our marriage because, we didn't go out or anything. We just went to the church and came home and we had a business and we became very successful. And that's because most of our friends at that time were out doing drugs and partying, and we were married and we were going to church. So we were in that religion for about 10 years. And so I think that's why our marriage worked, because we were religious and our relationship was about God. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons when I started, when Greg and I started dating, and I think I mentioned we were very amorous, very romantic. And on Sunday morning, we would wake up, and we were in the bed all the time together. And we were like, it will be on Sunday morning, and we'd be in bed, doing the do. And I said to him, look, I want God to be in our relationship. We got to go to church. And he was used to going to church. He goes to church, you know. Yeah, he goes to church. And so I said, I want God to be in our relationship. And I think that what went back to my marriage, my marriage, our marriage revolved around God until it didn't. And when it stopped being about God, we fell apart. So anyway, um, when we were married, when I was married, my husband, he was faithful and all that. Hi, Lisa. Welcome. Welcome. Good to see you. How was your day today? So anyway, I felt like, I mean, when the marriage fell apart, it just like we left the religion, the marriage fell apart, and it was just like really fast. It was like a year. We didn't wait. I wasn't going to waste any time. The other reason I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. Okay. So we had, at that time, we were 28 years old. We had a beautiful house. It was 2 stories, a big fenced in backyard. We had a Thunderbird. I had furs. I had diamonds. We had the life. We were doing really well. We were 28 years old. And then, how you start thinking, everything's okay. And then, so anyway, we had all that. We had 2 kids. We had the house. We had all the stuff. But then my husband, who, like, I don't know if I mentioned you, but I think he's on the spectrum. I didn't know if he was on the spectrum then, but he was doing everything I said to do at that time when we first married. And so things were going along. But when he started wanting to do whatever it was he's going to do, he basically ruined our business. We had a business. We had like 10 employees. We're 28 years old. We had 10 employees. We had a house. We had children. We had 2 children. Everything was really great. And then he started spending all the money on the business. And so I went to get a job because out of our business, because I just needed to. And then he really started making really bad decisions and basically spent all the money in the business. And so the accountant called me and he said, my name was Harris then, Miss Harris, the accountant said, come and talk to me. I want to know what's going on with you. What's wrong with your business? And he said, you spent all this money. And I said, I didn't spend all this money. What are you talking about? And then he showed me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that my husband had spent and had nothing to show for it. And our business, we couldn't pay our taxes. We were behind on our mortgage, and all that stuff. And so then I get to my husband, I say, why, what happened? Where did you spend this money? Why is our business, why our mortgage isn't paid? None of this stuff. What did you do with the money? And he couldn't tell me what he did. I said, well, tell me you set up a woman. Tell me you did something, but tell me why our mortgage is behind all the stuff we worked. Anyway, long story short, he then decided, like I said, he was on the spectrum. He decided he was going to start a singing group. So then he started driving around in our Thunderbird with these women in the car that they were in the group, that he was going to manage the singing group. No money's coming in the house. The mortgage is behind. And he's driving around in our Thunderbird with these women saying he's going to start a singing group. Really? So I said, look, because, we had been married, like, we had been married like that time, like about 8 years. And I said, look, because we were married 5 years before we even had kids. So I said, look, I'm gonna got this job. I'll bring home so much money and you bring home so much money, and we'll catch up on, if we really put our heads down and work hard, we can get ourselves out of this hole. Well, he didn't do that. And he never brought any money home. And so I divorced him. and I wanted to save our house. I wanted to save my house, and I wanted to borrow money to save my house. And I wasn't going to get anybody who was going to help me with this man sitting there that's walking or driving women around in the car. So anybody have any questions about that? That was my marriage. And that's how the marriage ended. And he was living there at home, and he came home one day, and I was working at this job, and I took my check and I paid the attorney for the divorce. And so he was there, and he was mad. He's like, "Why are you divorcing me?" He followed me around. I said, "You're not. What do I need you for? You're just crazy." But anyway, I divorced him, and that was how I ended up. That's how my marriage ended. And how have any of you been divorced online? How many of you have been divorced before or married? Any of you been divorced? I guess that's what I want to know. Anita, you've been divorced? Okay. Okay. Anybody else been divorced? No, you've never been divorced? Okay. Miss Butterfly, you've been divorced. Winter, you've been divorced. Kelvin, you've been divorced. T. Miranda, no, you've not been divorced. Okay. Okay. So there's been a few like me who've been divorced. You never married. Okay. All right. You have Silver, you've been divorced. Okay. So a lot of us have been divorced. How long were you married? I was married for 10 years. How long were you married? Tell me, those of you who got divorced, how many years were you married? Hi, Dancing Doll. Good to see you. 35, still going strong. Good for you, T. Miranda. 12, oh wow. 27, Miss Butterfly. Winter, 15. That was hard, 27 years to get a divorce. That's a long time. Married 46 years and you're now a widow. Oh, that's really hard. Wow. Wow. Married 3 years before your divorce, Kelvin. You doing divorced 15 years both. Wow, Silver. That's a tough one. So if when you divorce, isn't it a hard feeling? Isn't it a bad feeling when you're divorced? Don't you feel terrible? He cheated twice? Man. My husband, my husband, we married young. Yes, it was painful. Yeah. User 1708. Yeah, it's painful. My husband, I'll tell you, this is what he did. You had a party, you went to her, you were like ready. So like I told you, my husband was on 34 years here. You've been married 24 years, Gemini? So again, I told you my husband, he was on the spectrum, right? And so I tricked him, I said, "Oh yeah, so yeah, you sound like you've been having a party." Because I was the very first person. We were the first people that we had, sex together. We were teenagers, kind of. Divorced after 8 years, remarried 2 years after the divorce, and been married 6 years to the same person. Congratulations, Tuger. So my ex-husband, again, I told you he was kind of on the spectrum, so he wasn't very bright. So I started talking to him, I started saying, talking stuff, "Oh man, you really been cool driving around in the our Thunderbird with these women, and you like starting this marriage group, and like you starting this song group. These women are going to be singing." I said, I bet the women are falling all over you. And he got to talking. So he's like, "Yeah, yep, yeah, they started, they all wanted to be with me, and I didn't take any stuff off of them, and I didn't take any, and he started telling me about all these women. And then I started laughing. "Oh, really? You're kidding? Tell me more." "Yeah, really?" I'm like laughing. I'm like his wife, and I'm like acting like I want to hear about it. Anyway, long story short, He ended up telling me that in 2 or 3 months, he had been with 16 women. My husband, he told me while we were married that he was been with 16 women. When he told me that, he's like, what man tells his wife that he was with 16 women? And he's like bragging. Yeah, and I'm like feeding him like, yeah, oh yeah, oh, you're so cool, oh, I said something. And then I'm like, you will never touch me again, ever, ever. That was it. And he told me. Like I said, he was kind of on the spectrum, but I was like, then he was like, and he was like bragging. Yeah, I didn't take anything off of anybody. He's going on and on. And I was done. That was it. I was like, done, 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 done. There's no more. So then he wanted to know why I filed for divorce. 16, can you imagine? And telling your wife that you did it. Anyway, so that was the only time I was married. I was like, I am out of here. You're not going to touch me again. Like, who knows who he had been with 16 women? No, I wasn't. I was hurt. The thing about my ex-husband too, let me tell you this. Because so he was living in our house. We had our house. We had a beautiful house. 334 married or 34 married, Jim and I. So we were still living in the house, but needless to say, we weren't going to be sleeping together anymore after 16. Who, my ex-husband? No. Trump wasn't even around then. I mean, we're talking about, this was in 19, I'm 77. This happened when I was 28. So that was in 1976. So there was no politics in there. So anyway, so I filed for divorce while he was there in the house. And he'd follow me around the house every day. You're making a mistake. You're making a mistake. Why are you doing this? Anyway, that was it. And I have to tell you now, and we had 2 kids. The biggest thing that angered me about my ex-husband was we divorced, and he never, ever, 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 ever took care of his kids. He never paid child support. I took him to court twice. Back then, they let him get away with it. So here I am. We were married 5 years. Let me tell you the whole picture. We were married 5 years. We were like newlyweds, and we were young and all that. And then we got married when we were married 5 years, we decided to have our first child. So when we were married 5 years, my daughter was born. And then we decided we'd have our second child. I definitely believed in Planned Parenthood. So then 3 years later, we had my son. And let me see. Let me see if I can see comments. Anybody commenting? Okay. No, I think the comment should go here. If anybody, Facebook isn't saying. Yeah, they divorced the kids too. So I was so angry because we planned. In fact, the second child.
I'm going to see how raunchy it is outside.
Greg, come here, Greg. Greg, I'm at Greg's house.
You'll have to ask Pamela about her raunchy.
You got to let them see you. They can't see you. There you go. Okay. So now come here. We're going to tell for a minute. We're talking about it. So we were talking the other night, and we were talking. Greg, you got to come here.
I'm not sitting down. I got to go outside.
Okay, well, you got
it.
But you got to not. Okay. So Greg, you come on. You're not. People want to see you.
Don't worry about me.
Come on. So I'm not going to tell the story if you don't. Okay. So we were talking. I was talking to Greg, and I was talking about how when we first met, And he was like, so he was not suggestive at all. There was nothing about him that showed how hot he was. It was like, I thought, oh, okay, all right, he's the one I'm going to go all in with, and it's going to be boring. Tuger says, hey, yes, we want to see you. Everybody's saying hi to you, Greg. So anyway, so I said, you were like really like very serious. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't kind of coming on. He looked very serious. And then when he started, we got romantic. He was like, this guy just raunchy, and he was like, all this thing like really turned me on. It was like really hot. So I was laughing. I was like, you were like this person that you couldn't like tell. Jim and I said hi. Miss Butterfly says hi. Miranda said hi, Greg. So I was telling him, I said, and then when we go to bed, all of a sudden you like this raunchy sexual, thing. So I was talking about how raunchy he was. And then we were, in one morning, we were together romantically.
And I wasn't the raunchy one.
He was looking at me. He's like, who's raunchy? He started laughing. He said, you're talking about me being raunchy. So we have this thing about who's going to be raunchy. But you look at him, he doesn't look like he would be raunchy, does he? He looks like very serious or whatever. And that was like when we first met, he was like, and I was like, okay, all right. Okay, he went to watch my dog. He said, he just like looked very serious. He didn't hardly smile. He didn't like, how guys, they'll kind of come on to you or put their arm around you or make remarks or, let you know that they're trying to, score. But he didn't show any of that. He didn't show any of that at all until I went over to give him a cuddle. And then he was like, I told him I felt like, because I was really naive. I just didn't really get the whole picture of what was going on. And so I had my flannel pajamas on and I went over to give him a cuddle. And, it was just like, he was like, I was like a little bird and he was like an alligator. And he like started touching me and I hadn't been with anybody in 20 years. And then I was like butter. I was like melted in his hands. But, so what I was telling him about was there was nothing about him when we first met or when we first were together that showed that he was that romantic. I was thinking, oh, this is probably going to be boring. So anyway, that was kind of a side note, Greg. But I'm at Greg's house this week. Jim and I, your hubby's like that too. He doesn't show that he's kind of until you actually get into it. I was really wrong. I was like, what? Literally the best I've ever had in my whole life. I'm like 75 and the best I've ever had in my whole life and more than I've ever had in my whole life since I'm 75 and in my whole life. So, excuse me. Anyway, so we were laughing about raunchy and then, I guess because we have that connection, it's really electrical or whatever. So anyway, I was talking about how he was raunchy. And then the next morning I was like, doing what I was doing. And he's like, who's raunchy? But he doesn't look, if you look at him and he'd walk around, he doesn't look like he's like hot or anything, does he? I think he just looks kind of, like a like a professor or something, or accountant. He looks very, he does. Yeah. He doesn't look like he's this sex machine. So I was really surprised. I was not expecting this at all. I was like, oh, this is probably going to be boring. But anyway, I just said I was going to go all in. And, anyway, so back to my husband. Thank you, Winter. But anyway, I said, with my ex-husband, he got married. Yeah, he said he's not a nerd. That's what he looked like, was a nerd. Like, okay, he's not gonna, because the guys I liked before, like they had like a fancy car and they dress real sharp and they kind of, give you the look and they give you, they let you know they're coming on to you. That there was none of that with Greg at all. None of it. Just like, okay, this is a guy, he's it's probably going to be boring, but I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something different than what I've done before. And I don't regret it at all. So anyway, with my ex-husband, he got married right away. He moved out of our house and moved in with this woman who was 6 years older than him and got married right away and took care of her kids and never took care of our kids at all. And after being there several years or whatever, I moved to California with my kids because I was living in a suburb of Chicago. And I moved to California with my kids. And my ex-husband did not see my daughter for 25 years. Anyway, that's what happened. So that was my marriage. And then after that, I just like, hello, Yolanda, how are you doing this evening? We're glad you're here. Thank you for liking the live. Yeah, if you all could like the live, that would be great because they'll give me, they'll send more people here. Appreciate it. They move on and start a new family. That's exactly what my ex-husband did. Exactly. He started a new family. Well, he was married like 7 times. And I think I shared with you that he's in hospice now. We've been divorced. He's only 6 months older than me. And he's in hospice. He can't walk. He's 6'2", he's tall. He can't even walk. He was in a nursing home. My kids went to see him. And now he's in hospice and we don't know how long he has to live. So, I felt sad, we had, we were married, we were religious, we had a good home, we built a lot in 10 years. And, but anyway, we've not been here a long time. So anyway, I was by myself and I just I didn't want to I'll tell you, one of the main reasons I was not going to have another man live in my house. My kids were 2 and 5 when my husband and I divorced. And I did not want another man in my house with telling my kids what to do. I had a bad experience. My mother got remarried after she and my dad got divorced. They were married for 18 years. And it was terrible being a stepchild. How many of you either A, had somebody live with you and your kids, or B, was a stepchild because your parent got remarried? Anybody had that experience? Because that was my experience, which is the main reason I wasn't going to have some man. You were a stepchild, Cindy? Cindy, you were a stepchild, or you were with someone who was over your children, living there with your children? Because, maybe you can meet a man that loves your children as much as you do. Your mother had to have a man around. So you've had many stepdads. Okay, Lisa. Okay. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You live with someone. Okay. And then how was it with your kids? Because this man, my mother married, is like, your kids are too loud. Your kids are lazy, whatever. And so I just oh my God, your parents divorced when you were all adults. Okay. It was awful as a stepchild. Yeah, Vicky. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that's hard. It is hard if you're there. If somebody is over there and he doesn't think your children are good, or he thinks your kids are too loud, or he thinks your kids are this or that, and then you're walking around. You moved out at 19 to get away from it all. Yep, yep, yep. And I see why you be careful, about being with somebody, Lisa, because when you have those experiences, children, it affects you as you get to be an adult, which is why, this I created the invisible rule for that. But yeah, you had a man living with you and your children. He was an amazing father figure. Oh, okay. Great. What happened to the relationship, Yolanda? What happened? Is he still around, Yolanda, or did you all end up breaking up? Because if you have somebody and they really treat your children well, that's something. That's a plus. Hey, Nina. So yeah, I'm telling you, if you have a man and he's there and he's like trying to tell your kids or telling you your kids are this or that, or your kids need to be doing that, I wasn't going to have that. And I had that as a kid. So that's why I didn't. So that was one main reason I was by myself. So we're talking about why strong women stay alone. And like I said, I told you about my husband. And then after that, I never did live with another man for 46 years. 1 year, I was with someone, but that went really badly. I've shared about that before. So, if you're single, let's get the roll call here. Who's single? Who's married? And who's divorced? Tell me in the chat. Are you single, married, or divorced? Netta, single. Okay, Lisa, you're single. Okay, let's see. Go back here. It's me, Dee, you're single. Rose, you're single. Trey Bean, you're single. Miss Duchess, you're single. Sugar Bay, Juanita, single and divorced. Cindy, divorced. Anita, divorced. Jen, divorced. Jesse, divorced. Vicky, divorced 40 years. I was divorced for 46 years. Still counting. Hello, Nina. How are you doing? Lena's single. Dawn is widowed. Yeah, we need to include the women who are widowed. Who's here that's widowed? Okay. So, how long? Still counting. Widow, divorce. Miss Butterfly, now in a relationship. Okay. So, how long have you been by yourself? Okay. So I was by myself for 46 years. 46 years by myself. I was married for 10 years. You've been divorced for 20 years, Van Gogh. Okay. How many? Okay. Who else? 5 years. Sugar Bay, 28 years. How many years? Dawn, how long have you been a widow? Nina, how long you been single? Been together 18 years, by yourself 5 years. 20 years, 16 years divorced. You've been divorced for 12 years. Back in a relationship for 10 years after a violent, oh my God. Yolanda, bless you, bless you. Lisa, 7 years single. Okay. Yep. I don't know. I said 46 years. Anyone higher than me? 5 years, Nina? Anyone longer than me? 46 years. Lisbeth, 21 years. Okay, she's up there. So, I got choked. So, excuse me. So, yeah, I'm 70. I'm 77, Jesse. So, And my husband and I divorced when I was 28, I think 28 or 29. Nina, 17 years in a relationship and 8 years single. Dawn, only 2 years. You were married for 48 years. Bless you. I know you're still in pain. Dawn, she's on Facebook and she was married for 48 years and she's been a widow for 2 years. Yes, I am engaged for the first time. That's okay. I'll be okay. Oh my gosh. So anyone who's been widowed, that's a tough road. That's a tough road. So, okay. So I've been by myself for 46 years. Now, why do we tell ourselves we're alone? What did these are some reasons I said I was alone for 46 years. One, I did not want any kids around my kid. I didn't want anyone living with me and my kids. Then I was too busy. No chemistry, no good men out there. There's too much baggage. Not successful enough. So, what reasons do you tell yourself that you want to be alone or you are alone? No good men. Too many men out there playing games. You feel better. You prefer to be alone. Safety. Yep. Safety. Don't want to take care of anyone. Yep. Yep. So those safety, I think when I look at it, I was protecting myself. Now, why this no good men? So I was protecting myself. So why you prefer to be alone? It's me, D. Okay. So here's what I was protecting myself from. To relearn yourself and love you, and you bought yourself flowers and took yourself on dates. Winter, I like that. I like that. I did a lot of that myself. I mean, I can go to the movie. I still can go to the movies by myself. I can go to dinner by myself. I can take myself on a date anytime. Go to the beach by myself. I've done everything by myself. Travel. I traveled to Spain by myself. I traveled to Portugal by myself. I went on dates. I went on Tinder while I was in Portugal and went out with men. Some men are looking for a mother, not a life partner. Yeah. So, okay, here's what I was doing. I was solo trips. Dates are nice. That's right, Lisa. When you can like be by yourself, you got it. You've made it. You've made it. Because when you don't need, because I did not need anyone. In fact, when Greg and I met, he'd been by himself for 20 years and I'd been by myself for 46 years. And on our first date, we said, we don't need anybody. I don't know how we end up, I don't know how we end up together, but we don't need, neither one of us needed anybody. That was the first thing we decided on our first date. Neither one of us we knew how to live by ourselves. We didn't need anybody. Yet here we were on this date. And now here we are cohabiting together. I'm here at his house. So what so anyway, what was I being safe from? Okay. A lot of it goes back to, what happened when you were young. So, my mother was very beautiful. They thought I was homely. They called me homely because I was not even close to being as pretty as my mother. But anyway, my mother was pretty and my dad was a dog. No, he was a dog. My dad was a dog. He admitted. They used to call him Hammer. He was nicknamed because he had so many women. So anyway, my dad, he slept with all my mother's friends. I mean, they were married for 18 years. He slept with all of her friends. He beat her. He, went out, played out on her, had a Cadillac. We had holes in our shoes. We had hand-me-downs. I wore hand-me-downs mostly as a child. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of drinking, a lot of chaos. I used to have to break, as I was a kid, I was like 10 or 11, I had to go in there and break up the fights between my parents. So when you have that kind of thing, you grow up with that, you want to be safe. And then my mother, she became an alcoholic, and that's how she dealt with it. She partied and she, burned herself out and died at 41. So you look at that and just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And she loved my father even until she died. And my father bragged about it. He said, yeah, I know your mother was thinking about me until she died. Like, what kind of man is that? But anyway, he, hi, Lynetta, glad you're here. So when you see that and you live that, it's traumatic. And so when you grow up, you say, I'm not going to have that. So how many of you had living in a loving home, or you lived in a home that felt unsafe? So my house was unsafe. So therefore, I was not going to put myself in a position where I was going to feel unsafe. So tell me if you felt safe or unsafe in your house when you were a kid. Safe or unsafe? Because that'll tell like a lot of reasons why you're by yourself now. You feel safe or unsafe. You had a safe home, Butterfly. Unsafe, Rose. Loving, safe home, Yolanda. Safe, Silver. Foster care feels unsafe. Whitney. Mocha, safe. Okay. So there's a lot of you that said you grew up in a safe home, but when you got with a man, were you with a man who was safe or unsafe? Those of you who felt unsafe, did you marry somebody when you were safe? Your dad was a cheater, turned out he wasn't even your dad, and your mom had an affair with. Unsafe. Lynetta, very unsafe. Very unsafe. So your parents are still alive. They're 86 years old. Yolanda. Married and safe. Rose. So did you choose, those of you, did you choose whether you were a safe or unsafe? Married, safe. Somewhat safe, Ruth. So when you chose a man, did you choose a safe or unsafe man? You married a player, Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. Well, my husband, I thought, he wasn't a player, but he turned out to be a player. 16 women in 2 or 3 months. You never married, but felt safe, but never felt safe. Absolutely, Lisa, of course. You married a player, Ruth. Okay. She's Whitney. You chose a safe man. Are you still with him? Are you all still together? She's Whitney. You chose someone safe, or if it wasn't safe, or what happened? You divorced. Why did you end up divorced when you chose a safe man? A lot of times, we women who are used to that, we choose men. We don't know it, but we choose men that are like our fathers. A lot of us choose men that are like our fathers. So the men that I chose, my husband, he wasn't like my dad. He was kind of a square. After 20 years, you fell out of love. Yeah, that happens. Not you, Rose. Rose, you're with a man that's like your father, very loving and supportive. That's wonderful, Yolanda. Most of us women who had unsafe homes and had fathers, we chose men like that. That's why why, I wouldn't normally choose anyone like Greg, because he looked like a square. He's not a square. And Greg has been a womanizer, believe me. And but he didn't he hid it very well. So Liz, you chose the opposite of your father, Lisbeth. No, wait a minute. Ruth chose the opposite of your father. And Yolanda, you're with a man that's just like your father, very loving and supportive. Elizabeth, you divorced the cheater and remarried a few years later. Now, is that better? You grew up in an alcoholic home, 72, never married, no trust. Yes, chose alcoholic. Patty, I'm a high five you, because that's a lot of what happened with me. And I just felt like this is why when I turned 75, I closed the door and I said, no more love, no more sex, no more men, because I don't make the right choices and it's too painful. Because I kept choosing men that ended up being like my father. Now, it's very interesting because you just say you can't do it. You don't mean to choose a man like your father, but you choose him because you have an invisible rule that tells you, you don't know the invisible rules that going here, that you have an antenna that says, whoo, like you attract the man like your dad or like that. Yeah, Patty, I get it. I mean, because I grew up in an alcoholic home. And then after that, I just said, F75, this is over. Love is not going to be for me. So I was alone for 20 years, no sex. I was celibate. And I felt I'm 75 now. I couldn't do it. I don't know how to do it. And so it's that love for me is over. And then I met Greg. I mean, I didn't expect this to happen, because Elizabeth, are you still married now to someone who you love? Or did your marriage not work? So I guess, Nina, I guess my question for you you were in a relationship for 7 years and now you've been single for 8 years? Is that what happened? Read your story. You have a story on Google, Yolanda Carter. Okay. I should write that down so I don't forget it. Yeah. Your fur babies love you. Yeah, I had 3 dogs. During the 20 years that I was no more men, I love my dogs. My dogs gave me all the love I needed. And, I had kids. My kids were grown and my kids loved me. And I had a few friends. I'm not, I'm not like into a lot of people, but I had friends. And that's all I felt I needed. I did not need a man at all. I do not need a man. I did not need a man. So, when I call it, you kind of close up shop. Liz, you've never been married. Were you in a safe or unsafe home when you were a little girl? Have we set a date? I have set a date. I am not getting married right now. I keep telling people why, but I mean, I love Greg a lot. I do. I love him. I'm not sure yet about marriage. I mean, we're just starting to learn to live together. Like today, I drove from my house to his house, and I came home. I came to his house. He went to Pilates. I had a meeting, a business meeting. Then we fixed dinner. He fixed his dinner. Hey, Tara, how are you? Thank you for the rose. So he fixed his dinner. He had sweet potatoes. Hi, Lynetta. Thank you for the rose. He had some sweet potatoes and he made some peppers and he put, thank you, Lynetta. Um, and then he had glitter. Thank you. um, he fixed his food. He didn't even have meat, did he? He had like a sweet potato and he had some peppers and he had some carrots. He was eating the leftovers. And then I had a salad with broccoli and cauliflower with a little cheese and dressing over salad. So we sat down and we ate our dinner and then we washed the dishes. Now he's out there doing something in the yard and I'm here. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure I want to. We're engaged. The reason we're engaged. But I told him in the beginning, I want a long runway before we get married because I wouldn't just marry. Number one, my money's funny, and I have to have my money totally separate from him, and I really have to have it together, and I don't have it together right now. So if I get that together, I think I'd consider it more. I'd be more, But right now, I like it how it is. But we do have a date set. We have a date set. We're not telling anybody yet, but we do have a date set. But it's not right away because I'm not ready, and I'm not going to just get married just to get married because I'm supposed to get married. Let's see. Mish says, your nervous system causes a yes, you close those doors due to past trauma. The nervous system kicked in. All things can be translated to spiritual, neurological, and psychological. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's you teach what I teach. Michelle. Yeah. So let me see that 25 new messages. Yeah. Yeah. So, I certainly would not want to depend on him financially because he's very frugal and his lifestyle is not my lifestyle, what I want. There's a certain way I have to live and he can't provide that for me, but I don't need him to provide that for me. I provide that for me, but I wouldn't get married if I didn't have that in place because it would be a lot of friction. So anyway, here we are at almost at the top of the hour. So I want you to tell me the number one reason that you are by yourself. Either there's no good men, they're too old or you're too old, you're too busy, men have too much baggage, you don't feel successful enough. What are the other reasons that we strong women are by ourselves? Why are we by ourselves? Yeah, frugality. Lisa. See, that's the difference. Because before, that would be like, no way. No way. But you know what? It's just different. It's just different. Just like, for example, he took me away for the weekend. You're too independent, men play games. He took me away for the weekend. He pays for everything. Whenever we go in, he always pays for, like we go out to eat or whatever, he always pays for that. Men play games. But he took me away. We were at the place. It's comforting to be alone. You like living alone. Yeah, I was home a couple of days. When I'm at my house or he's at his house, but hi, Attikins, plus you don't go out much. Well, I literally, it wasn't until I decided, I got a coach and she said, you're not too old, because I felt like I was too old. And so when I felt like I was too old, and then I, went out there and I met Greg. And I'm very different. Everything about me is different than how I would have been before. But I have to tell you that I love being a woman. I've never been a woman, really. I've never been a woman in my life. I've never been a woman. I've never been like giddy and romantic and all of that. We met online, Cindy. We met on Match.com. I just never, I mean, I'm glad, I'm 77 and I'm like giddy like a teenager and I get goosebumps when he touches me and I cuddle, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that I've had this experience before I die. You know what I mean? I'm 77. Tara, you know what I mean? Yeah. In my soft era, I've never had this. And I'm 77. I never, ever, ever. Even when I was married, it's like I was the Amazon woman because my husband was on the spectrum. So I was like, slaying alligators and making sure the family and this and that. And then I was a single mother and I raised my kids by myself and I was tough and this and that. And then I'm out there, trying to make it in a white man's world and working and doing all those things and creating businesses and having all this. So I never got to be a girl. And now I'm a girl, you know what I mean? It's so funny. And it's like, he like appreciates like, like he's like, could you wear your dresses a little shorter or your figure? He really is into look, how you look. And, like he compliments me all the time and he always tries to make me happy. And I just never had that. So yeah, at least he's a little frugal, but you know what I mean? It's not about all that. You know what I mean? It's just I'm not, being in love hurts sometimes. You all know, you all saw me being hurt. But we, for some reason we were able to get back. Our love was bigger than our stuff. I guess that's what I will say. Because he has stuff. I mean, he's not perfect and I'm not perfect. But our love was bigger than our stuff. And, so I'm like, okay, I mean, like I keep telling you, my kid's like, Mom is making time in her life for this man, like she's like going this, they're living together part-time, like never. So, you got, I guess the lesson is we can like spend our life being safe. And I went out there and I like was not safe. You know what I mean? I took a risk, but I took a risk and I'm so glad I did. I'm glad I did. I'm glad. I'm like glad. I mean, I love being in his arms. I love holding his hand. Yeah, I never would have experienced it. Now, I told you I have to talk about him tomorrow. The guy before, the one who died. I'll tell you about him tomorrow. So if you are here, come back tomorrow. I do the lives on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with my honey. Yeah. Thank you for being here. We do have the invisible rule. If you could pin it here. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle. She says some nice, very nice things. Okay, I really love you all. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for witnessing my journey. So today we talked about my ex-husband and we talked about being alone. So tomorrow I'll talk about what taking a risk looked like for me, how I ended up getting into this letting him in. He actually got in. I'll tell you about it, and some of you all know. But he got in under the wire. It wasn't like I was open, like, oh, come on, just like he got in under the wire because he didn't look like he was who he was. Thank you so much, Anita. Thank you for being our moderator. She is so wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Click on the link and you can talk to me on an app and ask questions if you want. Talk to me. So click on that and then you can talk to me for free. I mean, if you want to report, you pay money, but you could just talk to me. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for coming. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Tara, for coming. I hope your hip is okay. I hope you're getting better. You're healing. Okay. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Facebook. Thank you for being here. Let's see. End the stream. I think I have to move it out of the way. I don't know how to. I have to do it this way.